Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, a historian discusses the president's comments about Andrew Jackson and the Civil War. And we'll meet a local whistleblower whose story led to an executive order from the White House. Those stories next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your PBS station. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. The State Senate Education Committee today approved a plan that allows Arizona's 3 universities to borrow $1 billion for new buildings and building maintenance. The vote was along party lines, with Republicans for the measure and Democrats against. Democratic Senator Catherine Miranda said that she could not vote for the plan while the state's K-12 education system is underfunded. The measure now moves on to the full Senate. President Trump recently made comments regarding Andrew Jackson and the Civil War, comments that have been widely criticized for being, at best, inaccurate. Joining us now is Jonathan Barth, an assistant professor of history at ASU School for Historical, Philosophical, and Religious Studies. Welcome to Arizona Horizon. Good to have you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Let's start with, I think his basic premise is he just couldn't figure out why the Civil War couldn't have been worked out.
Well, academic historians, we generally, we typically do not indulge in speculative history, right? And the reason why we don't do that is because you can't prove it one way or the other, right? But, nevertheless, speculative history can be very interesting, and the public likes it. And so it's not inappropriate to comment on something like this in a non-academic setting. President Donald J. Trump, obviously not a historian, right? And he's not supposed to be, right? And I mean, to be fair, he will often state things in a more bluntly and simplistically than a historian would. And, who am I to judge that, right? Like, he's got his style, he does his style. Nevertheless, despite those reservations about speculative history, I have to say, I mean, his comments specifically about Jackson and such, I don't think we can necessarily say that it's either altogether implausible or even inaccurate.
Well, he said that Jackson, this is a quote now, was really angry that he saw what was happening with regards to the Civil War.
Right.
And, Jackson was dead for 16 years before the war started.
And whether or not he knew that is a different, he had a tweet later in which he said, well, Jackson was already dead by that point. Whether or not he knew that is another question. But I think the spirit of what he said, I think, is what I meant, whether he was inaccurate or not. The fact of the matter is that the United States suffered from a whole chain of very weak presidents in the 1850s. Probably the last, most historians recognize the last strong president in U.S. history as being James K. Polk. And he was in office until 1849. After that, you had several very, very weak presidents. Zachary Taylor, Millard Fillmore. I mean, even the name Millard Fillmore, right? I mean, what do we know about Millard Fillmore? Franklin Pierce, and then to top it all, you have James Buchanan. And a lot of historians recognize James Buchanan as maybe the weakest, well, I would say not even maybe, the weakest president in United States history. Lincoln got elected in November of 1860, but back then you were not inaugurated until March, and so there was like a 4 or 5 month period, lame duck period, and during that time South Carolina seceded in December 1860, and then 7 other states seceded before Lincoln became president. Buchanan just sat by, let it happen.
Right.
And so I think the spirit of what Trump was saying, again, we can nitpick, right? But the spirit of what he was saying, the message was the 1850s, the U.S. was lacking strong leadership. And, I can't disagree with that, to be quite honest with you.
But he said had Andrew Jackson been around, there would be no Civil War.
Yeah.
Now, Andrew Jackson was a slave owner, unapologetic, unrepentant slave owner. Do you think there would have been no Civil War?
Well, again, it's impossible to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a slave owner. I think the other thing, besides the leadership question, was Trump was a strong unionist. He was strongly in favor of the Union and a staunch opponent of disunion. So there was one incident in 1833, in which John C. Calhoun, who ironically was vice president back then the vice president and president sometimes clash,
right,
and Calhoun led a movement in South Carolina to nullify the tariff. And that nullification of the tariff, they said, we don't like this tariff, is null and void. Jackson responded by threatening to send 50,000 U.S. troops down into South Carolina, and he sent a naval force down to South Carolina and said, if you secede, if you don't recognize this tariff, I'm going to take you down. So I think, again, yeah, Jackson was a slave owner. A lot of people in the opposition party were slave owners, like Henry Clay. Henry Clay ended up parsing out a compromise in 1850. So I think the point, again, is the strong leadership and a strong sense of wanting to preserve the Union that he's referring to. Whether or not it's correct, I mean, again, it's all hypothetical, all speculative, not really, correct one way or the other.
But the idea, it sounds as though he was saying that somehow the issue of the Civil War, slavery, major issue here, could have been negotiated. At the time, correct me if I'm wrong, at the time the problem wasn't so much slavery, it was expanding slavery.
That's right, yes.
So, I mean, could you negotiate and say slavery is okay, just don't expand it? I mean,
well,
I guess the problem is this is the President of the United States saying things, and I'm trying to get a historian on here to say, what? Yeah, well, historians, one thing that we like to do is to emphasize that nothing is inevitable. Right, that no event in history is inevitable. There are always variables that could have come into play that change things. Now, obviously, slavery was a very arcane, inhumane. I mean, slavery was basically saying you don't own your body, right? So it had to go. There's no doubt about it. The question is how does it go? And the way it went in this country was a civil war that caused the deaths of about 800,000 people, including about people forget that African Americans made up about 10% of the Union Army. About 80,000 African American soldiers lost their lives in the Civil War. It would have been nice if we could have avoided that. However, was the cost worth it? Well, we got rid of slavery. That was a very good thing. We replaced it with sharecropping, so blacks in the South actually did not fully liberate themselves after the Civil War. But in any event, it was a tragedy, I think, is the main point. It was good that slavery was done away with. Were there other ways to do away with it? Again, it's hard to say one way or the other. It would have been helpful, though, if we had stronger leaders to negotiate some sort of thing to get rid of slavery nonviolently. So what do you think? I mean, what do you think the president is trying to say here?
I think he's talking about leadership. I think that's the crux of what he's saying, that you have to have strong leaders. Because Andrew Jackson was not a small government guy.
Right.
He exercised the veto, and he exercised the veto more than any other president before him. He very much strengthened the executive branch. Trump likes to stylize himself after Jackson, who's very much a populist. Trump sees himself as a populist, and so Jackson is somewhat of a model. Jackson was in favor of a strong presidency and a strong union, and I think that's where Trump is getting at. And again, we can nitpick at things, but the predominant message, I think, here that Trump is saying is that the United States benefit from strong leadership. Whether or not Trump provides that is a different question, right?
But do you think he makes good points?
You want me to put my academic hat on, or you want me
I just want you to answer the question.
Yeah, he does make a good point about leadership being needed in the 1850s. No doubt about it. The U.S. would have benefited from strong leadership in the 1850s. Lincoln provided that, but he provided it at a point in which 8 states had already seceded.
Right.
If we could have avoided that and ended slavery in a different way, without all that bloodshed of 1 million people, close to 1 million people being killed, that would have been preferable. Now, maybe we couldn't have done that, and in that case, maybe it just had to be done. We could talk all day about that, but again, the spirit of what he's saying is leadership.
Okay, very good. I guess we learned more about the nullification crisis of the 1830s than we ever did because of the tweets and the stuff. Good to have you here. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Coming up, we will hear from a Phoenix VA whistleblower whose whistle was heard all the way to the White House.
This is a box that showed you a world beyond your own. It was just a box, but the world has changed, and so have we. And now the box can be almost any size or shape. And you decide what you want to explore. Anytime, any place. Break out of the box with PBS.
Brandon Coleman nearly lost his job at the Phoenix VA after exposing excessive wait times for health care appointments at the facility, information that led to a national scandal. Coleman managed to keep his job and was at the White House when President Trump signed an executive order that creates a Veterans Affairs Office of Accountability and Whistleblower Protection. We welcome Brandon Coleman to Arizona Horizon. Good to have you here. Thanks for joining.
Hey, thanks for having me.
This is a very interesting story. Explain the initial process. Was it regarding excessive wait times, or was it something else that got your goat there?
Yeah, I came forward because I'm an addiction therapist. No job I'd rather have in the whole world. The VA paid to educate me. I developed a program for convicted felons that were veterans that were convicted on drug and alcohol-related felonies. So all my program was run at night because veterans need to be in substance use disorder counseling at night if you have a problem with substances. And so from time to time, I would have a suicidal vet, and I would walk them over to the emergency room and do a proper handoff as a state licensed counselor. I'd do a proper handoff with a nurse or somebody there and go back to running my groups and helping my guys. And they weren't watching them. They were letting them sit in the emergency room after being deemed suicidal by an independently licensed professional. Around the same time, I'm also a disabled Marine Corps veteran. Around the same time, a coworker went through my private medical records with the Phoenix VA hospital, which if that happened in the civilian world, they'd probably be fired right on the spot. But little did I know I was in for the ride of my life, and I came forward as a whistleblower, and the retaliation started instantly.
Was there one incident that made you say, all right, this has got to be exposed, I can't take this anymore?
That incident was when Secretary McDonald came, during the firestorm, and he was on a 60 Minutes interview, and he swore to the American people that whistleblowers would be protected. And I remember sitting in bed with my wife that night, and I said, I'm finally going to be protected. But little did I know it was the furthest thing from the truth.
Well, okay, talk about the response of the VA. Someone went through your files. What else happened?
Correct. Then the director, I wound up getting harassed so bad that I felt no choice but to go to the media, and I went to the media. The next day, the director held a secret meeting with all the higher-ups at the Phoenix VA in which he proposed my termination. When he was told no, that they couldn't terminate me, the lawyer said, but we can come up with other adverse employee actions. This is all documented from somebody that was at the meeting. And a week later, they said that I threatened a coworker. I laughed because I've never raised my voice in 10 years of federal employment. The week after that, I was handed a piece of paper saying that I was being sent home on paid administrative leave while I was being investigated for misconduct, and that if I wanted to return to the VA hospital where I received medical care, I had to have an armed police escort. And while I was gone, along the way, the director put a gag order against me, forbidding me from speaking to any Phoenix VA employees. I said, how can you schedule an appointment if I can't call down there?
Right.
So that was rescinded after 4 days. I testified before the United States Senate regarding whistleblower retaliation in Washington, D.C. in September of 2015 with the help of the United States Office of Special Counsel and with the help of some high-powered attorneys in D.C. I was able to win my case and get back to work.
Before all this happened, I heard you say early on you were harassed to the point that X, Y, and Z. How were you being harassed initially?
There were leaders within the Phoenix VA that I walked by after I was on the news, and a prominent member in the social work department said, "Don't rock the boat," things like that were being said, and it was just uncalled for. And like I said, I felt no choice, but I had to, get some protection.
Now you were on paid administrative leave?
460 days.
What did you do?
I went nuts. My wife was there for me. I mean, I didn't go nuts literally, I should say, but
yeah.
Even though it's paid, you're waiting for registered letters to come. You're waiting to be fired, or you're waiting to go to court, or you're waiting for someone to help. And in the meantime, I used that time to contact about every senator and representative, and wound up getting a lot of help from, Senator McCain, from Kyrsten Sinema, from Ann Kirkpatrick. They did a lot here in the state for me. I had a letter signed by every representative in the state asking the secretary what was going on.
Were there people at the VA, where you work, were there people telling you on the sly, here's what's going on, here's what's not going on, or were you a pariah to everyone?
No, there's still people telling me what's going on. So there's still people within the Phoenix VA that tell me. There's people around the country that tell me what's going on at their VAs, especially after meeting the president. I had 81 emails sent to me from other VA employees across the country history. Some of those were even sent to me at the VA, which I would never communicate at the VA with any other whistleblowers. But it just shows you that maybe the tide is changing, that people feel hope enough to at least contact me.
But Mike, I was kind of wondering because, I mean, when you're on administrative leave here and you've been harassed and you could feel like you're on an island. You could feel like you are alone, but it sounds like there were folks that were hanging in there with you.
Well, for every member of Congress that told me no, I wrote 10 more letters and wound up, I got a lot of help from Senator Joni Ernst and Senator Chuck Grassley from Iowa. I've been to Iowa, but I had a lot of help from Iowa.
Yeah.
Senator Ron Johnson, who invited me to testify. Representative Jeff Miller, former chair of the Vet Subcommittee. Just the help was there. You just had to go get it. And I thought after I testified it would be over, but little did I know I was still cleared of any wrongdoing, just sitting home at great expense to the American taxpayer. And coworkers of mine decided to dress up as me for Halloween and made fun of me as a disabled veteran. And there's a picture that went nationwide of this coworker dressed as me for Halloween with a fake USMC tattoo, and I have a real one on my arm that I earned.
Right.
And the supervisor smiling. And that day they were sent home, but then they were back 2 weeks later. So nobody in my case has ever been held accountable.
I was going to say, from a distance and from it just sounds like it's the Keystone Cops over there. It sounds extraordinarily dysfunctional.
Absolutely, and I think under Secretary McDonald, a lot of that was still happening. It was horrible, and it still has a lot of room for improvement. There's still many atrocities. There's other whistleblowers going through the same thing right now at the Phoenix VA.
Is the condition of the Phoenix VA, the overall aspect of the Phoenix, is it improving?
I would say not yet. I've said nationally many times that throwing money at the problem isn't the issue, because the Phoenix VA's budget has been increased by over $100 million per year since the scandal broke in 2014, and yet wait times are still just as bad, if not worse, in most areas of the hospital. So you tell me where that money went.
2015 Office of Accountability rules in your favor. Did you ever think you would get justice in this?
Justice is when I was standing on stage with the President of the United States, and it wasn't just me standing there. It was for the hundreds of whistleblowers that I've talked to over the last 3 years, the ones that nobody will ever know their name because their cases didn't have enough notoriety, and it's for those new employees that were brave enough to come forward. I mean, how amazing is that they're willing to contact me, hoping that I can help.
And here you are, you're right there in the back watching the President sign the order there. I think we have another shot of you off to the side on the right. As he's walking in or walking out, either one. There you are. But did you ever like lose a little bit of hope? Do you ever think is this ever going to turn out right?
To be honest, yeah, there's times when you really question yourself and you want to move on. But to win this, my friends and family think I'm crazy because I told them to win, I have to go back. I was put on the planet professionally to help other veterans with their alcohol and addiction issues. There's no place I'd rather work than helping my brothers and sisters out.
So when were you allowed back to work?
I signed my settlement with the help of the United States Office of Special Counsel, attorneys, and the VA, and I was back to work May 2nd of 2016. I went to work at the Anthem community-based outpatient clinic, which actually falls under the Prescott or Northern Arizona VA healthcare system, because I refused to work in Phoenix anymore. And I love my new facility, and they're great, and everyone has been as welcoming as can be, but they're professional. It'll never be the same.
I was going to say, what kind of reaction did you get?
I have a boss that allows me to do my job, and I now travel on Mondays. I travel to Flagstaff twice a month. I travel to Cottonwood twice a month, and I meet with veterans that are in trouble with the legal system to help them, get some sobriety.
As far as the executive order is concerned, what exactly does that do?
What it does is it creates a office to investigate whistleblower retaliation. And so what I've said nationally and will continue to say here is, while it is a great step forward, and I feel President Trump has done a tremendous amount for veterans in the first 100 days. People can say what they want about other areas, but with veterans, he's pretty locked on. And what it does is it creates this office. But what I've said is that there's many offices within the VA that are supposed to already protect whistleblowers. So unless we get at some teeth, and what I told Secretary Shulkin when I met with him briefly, he's also agreed to meet with me one-on-one to hear my ideas. I said we need to include whistleblowers. We need people that have been through the hell that happens, when you're a whistleblower at the VA, to help with this new division in Washington, D.C. And he said he's more than willing to meet with me to talk about it. So I'm excited. So for this to move forward, we need to be included.
So you are optimistic that things in general at the VA are changing, are improving, will change, will improve?
I'm optimistic that we have a president that believes in this nation's veterans, and military. I'm optimistic that we have a Secretary Shulkin, who I wasn't a big fan of at first, but I'm telling you, he's doing a lot of things that I like, and he's making a lot of tough decisions. Just yesterday, they removed a director from Cincinnati, and a couple days ago, they removed a director from another VA facility. So he's taken action, but we need to give him the ability to hold these people accountable, and that's why we need the help of Congress. We need some accountability bills to be passed.
Well, congratulations on this. It must have been very difficult for you at times, but you're back at work fighting a good fight, and good to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Get the inside scoop on what's happening at Arizona PBS. Become an insider. You'll receive weekly updates on the most anticipated upcoming programs and events. Get the insider delivered to your email inbox. Visit azpbs.org to sign up today.
Arnold Palmer once said that golf is deceptively simple and endlessly complicated. Girls Golf of Phoenix is an organization that teaches girls the sport, but also some very important life lessons. Producer Shauna Fisher and photographer Rob McJanet have the story.
Every swing, every drive is pushing these young girls closer to their goals. And that's the mission of an organization called Girls Golf of Phoenix.
Golf is the tool that I use to build the confidence with these girls. Okay, ready? Let's do it again.
Corey Matheson heads up the organization.
Our average age is 10, so these are little girls, and I think a lot of times people think the game of golf you have to be so experienced and so knowledgeable in all the rules and all the skills if you're going to do it.
You can go first.
Girls Golf provides a safe place where they don't have to have all that experience. So these girls are coming to me fresh. Some of them, it's their first real time on a course. We're gonna go from here to that really far one.
13-year-old Olivia Florence first picked up a club a few years ago when she lived in Chicago. She comes from an athletic family, and she saw golf as a way for her to have something she could call her own. She says joining Girls Golf didn't just improve her playing skills.
I really learned to communicate with people very well. I used to be really shy, and I didn't really talk to people a lot.
Olivia says Girls Golf also helped her in school.
When I hit a good shot on a certain hole, I really appreciate the fact that I've worked so hard for that. And that's kind of a connection that I make with my life. I've worked really hard to, let's say, study for a math test. And once you get that one answer right and you feel it that you can do even better, you're on the right track, that makes me feel really good.
I think it's better with our lucky spot.
When 10-year-old Tatum Partridge took up golf, it was because of an injury.
Right here, it's just my lucky spot.
She broke her leg and was looking for a sport that didn't require running. Her mom signed her up for a girls' golf event.
A Halloween golf tournament, which I loved it. It was probably the best time I've ever had.
Tatum says she's getting better at golf, but she's more impressed with the change in her attitude.
Nice. It's helped me by just learning and having patience, because golf, you need a lot of patience, and so it helps me with school, and then I can have more patience with school.
Her mom, Courtney, agrees. She sees golf as a way for Tatum to learn to be self-sufficient.
I'm most proud that she gets out here and smiles and has fun. And even though, she may be grouped with people that are technically her competitors, they will go out there and they will laugh, they will have fun, and she's made some really good friends from golf.
Is it about halfway, or is it rolling faster than that?
Corey says she loves to see girls like Tatum find that space where she can be herself and learn a new skill. It's why she joined Girls Golf herself when she was a teenager.
Girls Golf really had offered me a safe place where I could grow my game. It sounds silly, but when I was 12, I felt like I was starting a little bit later than some of the other girls that were already playing competitively. And if I was looking to play in college or play in high school or whatnot, I needed to kind of hunker down and get serious. We have a big hill to get up.
Corey says she knew back then she wanted to lead the organization.
1, 2, 3.
And about 4 years ago, she got the chance.
Olivia wins.
Girls Golf started in Phoenix in 1989. It has since grown nationwide, and there are now 300 chapters.
Are those some drills you learned from a coach?
50,000 girls ages 3 to 17 are reached each year.
Check your toes.
Girls Golf puts on tournaments and clinics, and also events surrounding the LPGA.
Where are you aimed at right now?
But the core of what they do is teach empowerment, self-esteem, and honesty.
A lot of people say that golf is parallel to life because it's going to teach you those values and those skills that you can take along. I mean, you're going to have to be self-reliable and get yourself there, and you're only relying on yourself.
Oh, make it in, make it in. Nice.
And for Tatum and Olivia, there's no better feeling.
It's kind of like winning. It feels like you're winning, just like after every single shot, you're winning a piece of like your life, your goals.
Oh, here you go. Good job, B.
If you're interested in Girls Golf of Phoenix, head on over to their website, girlsgolfoffphoenix.org. Thursday on Arizona Horizon, a state charter school takes several spots among the top 10 high schools in the country, but a report highlights traditional schools that have done well under more adverse circumstances. We'll have that story tomorrow on Arizona Horizon. We are also keeping an eye on the Trump-Ryan health care plan that could very well come up for a vote in Congress. If it passes, we will try to have that covered for you as well to try and figure out the impact of folks here in Arizona. Again, the Trump-Ryan health care vote scheduled for a vote, I should say, the plan, and we will have that story covered as well. That is it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great evening.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your PBS station. Thank you.